Oh, anyway, right, we're coming up next. We have Don Phillips, who's a paranormal investigator and a spirit contactee. As I said, he's founder. GSI Paranormal UK is his organisation. Has a good team he's put together based in Leicester. Has connections to the unseen world. He's had these experiences for his whole life. He's him and his team, as I said, they have a direct approach, a controversial approach. They're not approved of by everybody within the psychical research community, let alone the skeptics. And as I said, this is the second time Don has been on. He previously appeared in program 66. This is now going to be an update, and it is Don coming on live. So those of you, like I said, this is the time to hide behind the sofa if you want to do so. And those of you who are still here, I hope you enjoy it. Helps if I get the jingle right. That's the ghosts, I tell you. And Don Phillips is, as you said, you are the director of GSI Paranormal UK, and you spend a lot of time going around haunted houses. And in the previous program, you were talking about the various investigations that you were doing, and I hope you can you'll be able to give us an update on that. So, what's been happening since you last came on the show, which I think was last year sometime, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've got a couple of private cases I'm on at the moment. One of them, a priest actually came around to see me and asked me if I would actually help him out on it, so that's one that I'm sort of heavily involved in at the moment. We've done the checkers, as you're aware, Ben. We did the team investigation plus the public one, which she was actually there at the time, and a couple of just locations, just general locations, just checking out to see what's there, what's not.
Oh,
I've been doing quite a lot of research into the areas of things as well, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, so let's start with the checkers, because this is one which regular listeners will be aware of that I actually attended myself, and we had quite a night. I found quite amazing. But you've been back there since then, and what kind of things did you discover at the checkers?
Well, when we went back on the team investigation, it was literally 20 seconds in, and there was a gentleman there, given his name, much to the surprise of the landlord who asked us to investigate in the first place. A young girl called Alice was supposed to be seen sort of wandering around the bar area. Various customers and staff had reported this apparition of a young girl called Alice, so there was that to check out. There was quite a lot there, and we did actually make contact with Alice. Also, there was a very, very young child in the bar, we've got no idea who this is, who just tried out Mummy. Quite literally just tried Mummy at 3 o'clock in the morning, so that was quite fascinating. That also was like a live event thing, you know. It was actually recorded on the video camera, which is always a bonus. Yeah, I mean, if you watch the video on your YouTube channel, you can actually hear the word Mummy very clearly in a child's voice. Yeah, Go on, sorry. I'm going to say, and it was recorded on the microphone, but also you heard it, and several members of the team heard it too at the same time. Yeah, it's one of them things. They're like bonus recordings. They're like human voices. They're not like, as some people call them, EVPs, which I don't, as you know, Ben. You know, it's just like a child being there at the time. It's crystal clear. There's no doubt of what it is, what it sounds like, or what's being said at the time. There's no static. There's no interference, and it was at 3 o'clock in the morning, deadly silent. Right. So this is quite amazing stuff, and. So other people, I mean, obviously you go to these events. This is actually the old, what's it called? The old Checkers Inn. Yeah. Is it Ullersthorpe in Leicestershire? Yeah. And go on, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say that obviously there are people, there are regular staff, and there are customers. And what have they reported to you? A variety of things. The other person thought they heard whispers. Mainly, it's been the apparition of this child. That's all that was actually called in to investigate originally. The landlord took over the establishment. He'd been there about 2 weeks. He heard all these stories. I got recommended to him. Says, "Can you come just take a look?" And I think he got more than he bargained for, to be honest, Ben. Yeah. I mean, there was one gentleman who this is really quite amazing, who was struck on the head by a coin, and it wasn't a normal coin either, was it?
And something hit me on the side of the head, heard a noise on the floor, and when I looked down, there was literally a little half penny with a little ship on it, 1964.
But again, that was in an area, it's a projected object, you don't know where from, but it certainly couldn't come from anywhere. There was nobody there to throw it to him, and it struck him quite hard on the head.
Yeah, that was quite amazing, because this guy appears in the film. He's very sincere. He's not the kind of person I think who comes across as a fantasist. He's just a member of the bar staff at the pub, and he was hit on the head. He was when no one was around to throw the penny, and what's more, the coin he was struck with is not one that's in circulation today in this country.
Yeah.
So it's not the kind of thing that's likely to be lying around in the bar. Where did it come from?
To actually hit him with force, you know, it needs something behind it. Obviously, it's not just falling off somewhere and hitting him. Actually, you know. I mean, there was that, and the other reports of it as well was marbles appearing, apparently.
Yeah. Are these sound to me like what you might call apports? Now, apports, for people not familiar, are physical solid objects that just materialise. They just seem to appear, and very often they are identifiable as being authentic. For instance, in one particular séance, a 1938 copy of the Daily Mirror appeared, and everyone thought, well, it was just someone just went off and got one from the archive and got them to print it out, because you can do that if you want. But no, they checked it and they saw that it was actually the old type paper and ink that was used in those days.
Yeah, I believe SPR checked it. It wasn't just the fact that it was the same ink. Also, it's a different kind of paper. And one of the things I found interesting about that was, what I found out later, this, because of the kind of paper that's used, if it's actually left out for any length of time, it starts to discolour extremely quickly. Yeah. Which means it wasn't an old paper that somebody had sort of saved and everything. You know, they said it was effectively looked as if it was fresh off the print.
Yeah, and so it's a paper with a date 1930 or 1940 something, on old style paper with old style ink, looking brand new. Yeah. I mean, these are the kind of this is the kind of evidence that is.
You know, the ink was analysed thoroughly, and so was the paper and everything else, and everything seemed to be 100% genuine.
Yeah, I think this was part of what's called the Skull experiment, right, which is a big subject, which maybe we might have time to go and talk about that a bit later. But I want to talk more about also. You don't like the term EVP, but do you mind if I use it just for the sake of clarity? This is the term people are used for. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Cool. You have been collecting these EVP. Now, in a little while, later in the programme, I want to talk a little bit more about the background to EVP and what it's all about. But just to let listeners know, it's actually where you use some kind of recording equipment to pick up strange sounds. And now, one of the sounds you picked up was a. Well, I think should we play, because we have an audio clip that I'd like to play for people. And now, what they are, there are three separate audio clips on this. Well, it's three clips into one, isn't it? Yeah. The first one is we'll talk a bit more about what was actually said, but this was, I think, you recorded in the cellar of the pub, and that's the first thing that listeners are going to hear.
Oh, very clear.
Yeah, but very, very, and it's also quite sinister what was said. The second one is something that happened, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a minute, and that is the sound of children's toys. And then we're going to hear the sound of the word mummy being spoken,
right,
which we spoke
about. That
about.
recording, haven't you, that we've just been discussing?
Yeah. And the last thing we're going to hear, I think, is the most incredible of all, and also I think this is the most disturbing, because you were actually lying on a mortuary slab in a hospital.
That's correct, Ben. Yes.
Now, as an ex-hospital porter, this is something that
I think
I find particularly.
His next hospital as well.
Yeah, on a mortuary slab in an ex-hospital, not in a working hospital.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm now going to play this audio, and as listeners can make of it what they will. It's just under 3 minutes long. So here we go.
Again. That's a different toy. Is children's toys supposed to impress me? Something about babies, listen. really sounds to me like we drown babies. No, I'm not being nasty. Listen.
No, it does sound like it.
Did you hear that?
It does.
Listen to this. We drown babies. Listen.
Oh, yeah, I do hear that.
I'm sure the twiddle these knobs occasionally. It suddenly zooms in, he's out of focus for no reason. Look at that. What? The hell? The hell? It's a very interesting recordings, but I think there's a lot more we can get out of this place as I get to know the spirits and a lot more come forward and talk. Interesting, or could be an interesting revelation, is it would appear the guys are saying that underneath here, as you heard earlier, there's a lot of graves.
Right, and John, that is something that I
Fascinating.
find fascinating. Yeah, I know some people find that disturbing, and I apologise to any of those who do, but I find that sort of thing extremely fascinating. So tell us about the sound of the children's toys. Where can you visit?
Yeah, it was just a call from, well actually it was my daughter's from people that you know, a young couple, they've got very young twins. I've been in the house a couple of years, but a little while before Christmas things started getting a lot worse. Before there was kind of just feeling like there was being watched and something wasn't right, and then apparently things were being moved of their own accord. It's quite important to stress at the moment that at no point did they mention anything about children's toys. So I arranged to go around because I went around very quickly because children was involved. Normally there's quite a long process to actually agree to go to a location, but it was quite local, so I went straight round, more or less just within a couple of days. Quickly established that there was quite a lot going on. Before I'd actually experienced anything, Becky, she actually told me that there was something demonic there. Now,
Becky is a spirit you're in regular contact with, isn't it?
Yeah, anybody that follows me, the team, know Becky is. She's been here multiple times helping me, which again people are fascinated with. In fact, she's got more of a following than me, I think, at the moment. Anyway, I went upstairs. The temperature shot through the roof within about 10 minutes. I had to check whether the heating was off. It was a cold night, the heating was off, and then actually noticed that the windows was open. Then I started getting these entities purporting to be demons sort of speaking. Some were louder than others. One of the things I actually said to them, I was in the room and I said, okay, if you're demons you will have certain capabilities. Can you slam a door? Or there's a lot of children's toys downstairs, could you not set some of them off? I couldn't see actually at the time because I was in night vision. I had no idea to play back, but when I said can you slam the door, there was a very significant movement on the door behind me. I went downstairs, well I went downstairs because there was just no location. After that I sat there patiently for 5 minutes and a toy went off. I thought, okay, that's interesting, but bear in mind that is one toy, Ben. One toy alone is not really significant. It is interesting, but it's not significant. Throughout the night there was a total of 7 different toys going off, some of them at the same time. Even when I wasn't in the room, I actually went outside and the toys began to play. The click that I heard there, when I said is that supposed to impress me? And a spirit personality clearly said, yeah. I'm still involved in that case at the moment, but I will be going back to sort it out just within the next few days, because this was more of a fact-finding mission, if you like, Ben, to see exactly what's there. One shoe, you know, you can't just do it, and there's not one thing that just fits everything. You've got to establish what you're dealing with before you know actually approach it, and what's going to be the most effective way of dealing with it.
Now you're dealing, well, very often you're dealing with people who are in a very vulnerable position, and you've got to be sensitive to that, and I know you are.
Well, yeah, well, everybody's vulnerable in that position because, you know, they haven't got a clue, and they're presuming, and this is not always the case, depending on who it is you've got investigating or dealing with, that everybody's an expert. Well, first of all, there's no experts in the field of paranormal anyway, Ben. There's very experienced people that know what they're doing. There's also a lot of people that haven't got a clue. And these people who are you're saying are vulnerable. Yeah, they are, because they're hanging on every word. You know, they're looking for advice. They want to know what's going on. They want to know, can it be sorted out? It's a very, very scary experience for people.
I mean, if you watch the films on your YouTube channel, but when the toys start activating, it reminds me of some of the scenes in the film Poltergeist, which is quite a frightening horror movie in which some of the
well, it is to all intents and purposes. Poltergeist activity.
I mean, the moving of the door. Poltergeist is a situation in which there's some entity in a building, or it usually surrounds a person rather than a place. Usually a young girl as well, or a young teenage girl, and things will move by themselves. You'll hear strange noises, things like that. It's often very frightening. I mean, the Enfield Poltergeist is probably the best known one, and which took place in Enfield, North London in the 70s. And you mentioned the guy got hit on the head by a coin. A news reporter went round and he got hit by a Lego brick. I don't know if you remember that. Something very similar happened to him, and he went back and he swore that's what happened to him. A Lego brick just flew through the air and hit him on the head.
Yeah, what I always find fascinating, Ben, I've dealt with some very extreme cases, and I've done many cases. The stuff on YouTube is a very, very small percentage of the actual cases that I've dealt with. But it never ceases to amaze me that even if someone's in the grip of a genuine haunting, there are still the people there that will still fabricate things when there's absolutely no need. And all that does is literally discredit everything else. You know, I mean, I did a case a couple of years ago, and the lady there, that was a pretty extreme case. There was lots going on, and I found out she was fabricating stuff. I discovered a couple of things that she fabricated. Now, she'd done that hoping I was going to report on that and everything, obviously. But unless I actually see something with my eyes happening, as opposed to, oh look what's happened, I can't say that that's any phenomena taking place because I didn't witness it at the time.
Well, that's a great shame that people will do that. I mean, I don't like to pass judgment on people. They may be worried no one's going to believe them, so they try and spice it up a little bit and try and enhance their experience. But you're right, it does discredit us because.
But it also has a knock-on effect, because obviously them people, they're already getting attention, but they're seeking more attention. But the knock-on effect from that is when you get somebody else that's scared to death, the general consensus by a lot of people is, it's a load of rubbish, they're just trying to get attention.
I know. Unfortunately, there were some paranormal investigation shows, some of which are very popular on TV. Where I know, because I know a guy who's a TV producer, and he was asked to make a paranormal TV program. They offered him a nice budget. They offered him a nice team of people to work with.
Lost your bed.
And he said, and they said, well, you want to do it properly? And he said, I want to do it properly. I want proper investigation. Everything's got to be honest. And they said, yeah, sure, but we might have to. If nothing happens, we're going to have to fake a few things just for the viewers. And he just got up and walked out to his credit. Unfortunately, there are TV paranormal programs where they fake an awful lot of what they do, and maybe even the majority.
Well, it's staged a lot. Well, I can't think of actually anybody out there at the moment that's not come under some kind of scrutiny, where there's been video clips found on YouTube of people faking stuff. The problem is they're under pressure to perform, because it's all about ratings, which is all about money at the end of the day. And people don't want to sit there for an hour and watch a screen and nothing happening. So there is a temptation there for something, to make it appear as though something's happening, or overemphasise or overact something. I mean,
no. Sorry, that's just what I was. As a TV viewer, well, I'm not a regular TV viewer. I watch it some of the time. The thing I've always looked for is honesty, and as I said, because I did my own little video, we did like a co-collaboration, didn't we, on a video about the Ullersthorpe case, the Checkers Inn. And I said in this video, before I went on this investigation with you and your team, I said, if nothing happens, I'm going to say nothing happened, and I'll upload the video as it is. As it happens, something did happen. And I'd rather have like a paranormal program where maybe a live sort of like broadcast from somewhere where they make allowances for nothing.
It's something I'm actually looking into. Yeah, I'm looking into some kind of a live feed on one of the investigations later this year, because I think it's important that people see, when I go into a location and what I produce, it is pretty full on all the time. It's not a case of nothing happened for 3 hours, this happened for a minute, and you edit the video, it looks like it was really active. If people actually effectively go on the investigation with you, just via the live link, and see what's happening, You know, I think it'd be much better experience.
Well, let's move on to the next part of the clip, which I got them in slightly in the wrong order. Sorry about that, listeners. But the next part of the clip was an EVP you picked up with your recorder, which you can hear the terms. It's a rasping, whispered voice, but it articulates quite clearly the words "we drowned babies," which is very, very obviously it's a very disturbing thing to hear. But why do you think you picked up that voice? Is there any reason why you think you might pick those particular words up?
Well, there's three reasons I picked up them words up. First of all, there was a spirit personality or more in the cellar. Second of all, whether they did or not is very questionable, because they, as in death, there are people, shall we say, that like to sort of get an effect and get attention. So they like to scare people and come out with such things like that, even if they're not true. The interesting thing is, though, according to the research on the property, many years ago there was a fire down there, because there was, I can't remember, I'm not sure whether it's, I think it was a couple of families down there with children was actually hiding down there from somebody. But there was a fire and they actually died in the cellar. What I wonder is, why was they hiding down there in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, what was that somebody doing? But I mean, many years ago, human beings are very unkind, you know, and used to drown babies and things anyway. So it is a distinct.
But the actual, I mean, it's an old pub. It dates back to the 1700s, as you were saying, and the big fire took place sometime in the 19th century, and of course all kinds of horrible things did go on in those days, which of course do now as well, of course, in secret. But it was much more open in those days. But so that's quite a sinister. I mean, you also, when you were in that pub, you encountered a spirit who didn't take account of polite company, started hurling abuse at people as well.
Well, the abuse, I think, was basically directed at me. He was effing and blinding, and you know, it happened. Now,
the next thing I want to talk about is the next clip. Now, I think this is one I've only just heard about. This is a new one you've just done, and that is the Mortuary Slab. So, tell us a bit about that one.
That's it's actually Stevenage Orphanage. The mortuary was part of the original hospital. It was also a hospital, and the way they used to cremate the bodies was literally right at the side of where they stored them. Quite literally, it's like a massive chimney. You just go through a little door, and it is really quite creepy, because in there, the floor of this giant chimney is still made up of effectively people's remains, ashes, and everything. So we went in there. The whole place was haunted. It was a very haunted location, and I went in with Jamie from Ghost Quest. He was a guest with me on the night. I said, you know, I'm going to climb in there. And the reason I climbed in there was because I liked the sound from the inside. You know, with the doors closed, the way the sound bounced around and everything. And I thought, if I can speak to any guys in there and get a reply, it'll be very clear. I did get some replies in there. This is all in this video, which I'm going to be putting out shortly. But amazingly, whilst I was in there on the walkie-talkie, Rachel, my partner, she was in a different part of the building. She radioed me. She wanted me to come and check something out. And my words, literally, as you heard, was, you know, that's fine, but at the moment I'm in here talking to some guys. And then amazingly, over the walkie-talkie, was, that's right. I mean, that is very clear. You can tell it is actually over the walkie-talkie. But you can also tell how crisp and how loud that is, as though the spirit was actually using the walkie-talkie, unlike we would, you know, just literally using it, the speaker, to produce the sound. It obviously doesn't sound anything like it would if a person said that over the radio, and there's no clicks or anything. It was just, so yeah, I was very impressed with that.
Push it.
Okay, Jamie.
What's that? the moment, I'm actually in the mortuary, laying inside the thing on the slab with some guys talking to me. With some guys talking to me. With some guys talking to me.
Yeah, I mean that's like I've used walkie-talkies as well many times, and in the hospital too. They were common. One of the things we used at the hospitals when we were portraying, and of course you have like it's just it's not like a telephone. You have a transmit circuit and a receive circuit, and you press a little button to switch between the two, so you can talk and speak. And you will say over, and then you release the button to open the receive circuit and allow the other person to press their transmit circuit. And there's always a little bleep. You can hear a little beep.
Yeah, but excuse me. It's obvious during the time that was actually said over that speaker that there was actually no transmission going on.
Now this is another point we've got to get into, because like I'm also familiar with interference on these devices. I've used these instruments many times, as I said, in hospitals. You do get interference sometimes from the various pieces of equipment that are lying around in hospitals, which is part of the medical equipment, things like that, and various other things as well. But what I heard in that audio clip doesn't sound like any piece of random interference.
Or taxi drivers, etc.
Yeah. This is where we've got to come on to talk a little bit more about what we're discussing now. The term electronic voice phenomenon, I know, is not one you like, but it's one that is conventionally used, usually shortened to EVP. And
it's not that I don't like it, Ben. I just don't like it being used in the wrong context.
So is it AVP you prefer? Actual voice phenomenon.
Yeah, actual voice phenomenon.
This is a you'll hear various stories about this particular method of psychical research. Some people will say it started in 1959, where someone was recording bird songs on tape. I believe it goes back further than that. I read a book by Lyle Watson. But what it is, you get people who will, using some kind of this electronic recording equipment. It could have been a tape recorder. In the past, it was tape recorders. In modern age, it's usually digital recorders. But they'll play back what they record, and very often they will hear sounds on the playback which they don't expect to hear. And these are things they very often did not hear at the time. And sometimes these sounds, like I said, they vary what these sounds are. Sometimes they are recognisable words. If they're words, where are they coming from? Now, the idea is, and this goes back a long way, it goes back long before 1959. In fact, you go back to the people like Sir William Crookes and Oliver Lodge and John Logie Baird. Now, Crookes and Baird were the guys who pioneered the television. William Crookes invented the cathode ray tube, and John Logie Baird invented the television set. Baird also invented the infrared recording infrared signals. And this was well over this. Baird did his work 30 years before the people who recorded birdsong, and Crookes was many years before then. And but these people were both psychical researchers. They were members of the SPR, Society for Psychical Research, and a lot of their work was done as a sort of like a part of the psychical research that they were interested in. It involved vision as well as sound, but basically the idea that spirits of departed spirits and extra dimensional spirits can actually use these electronic devices to communicate with us by putting sounds and pictures onto them. So how did you get involved in this particular method, Don?
I, as a young child, used to be able to hear better than what I could do now with my ears. I don't mean anything loud. It was always very faint. It always had to be extremely quiet. Even now, I can hear the guys talking to me when I'm in my workshop when it's 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and it is deadly quiet. But it's no good. No good for me saying to people, "Oh, they said, he said, she said, etc." Because at the end of the day, that's just me saying something which doesn't actually carry much water, to be honest. So I started using recorders, so I can actually record it, play it back for everybody to hear. That's how I originally got involved.
It's very, now this is a method though that has come under some quite harsh scrutiny from skeptics. I mean, there's and this is something we have to address to get so the listeners get a balanced view on this. If you go to a skeptic website and you put in EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, you'll get a lot of explanations for this. Now, one of the explanations is this is actually simply random interference on the recording, which we are misperceiving as voices, because they sound a bit like voices, and well, our brains are the language we have language facilities in our brains which are deliberately look for patterns in sound. You know, it's called pareidolia. It's true. Audio pareidolia. Yeah. It's called, and sometimes we see patterns when they're not there. Now, this is the idea. Now, would you say that what you pick up on your recorders is just interference? It's just the hissing, crackling, things like that, which you accidentally or misinterpret? Would you say that?
No. Categorically. I mean, I'm having conversations. These are not just random words, and they're not random spirit voices. These, the guys at my place that talks in the workshop, these are regular. You know, these are guys I've been around a long time. You know, they are actually answering questions. You know, occasionally I get something unpleasant in there which swears at me. The argument against it is true in certain respects, but you've got to also understand is a lot of these arguments were made quite some time ago, and since then technology's moved on an awful long way. I mean, the first microphones, the liquid microphones, we've got them, then we moved on to the condenser microphones, the carbon dust. I mean, the carbon dust is still actually in use today, but it's mainly in telephones. The technology has just moved on so far, and the other problem that we have is, the other argument that they put forward is, oh, it's audio gain control and everything else, which, you know, it can cause that. But I think part of the problem as well is people don't actually understand the equipment they use. This is a device. I mean, a
lot of modern recorders have this. The audio gain control. It's automatic gain control. What happens is that the recorder actually measures the amount of volume coming in for its microphone, and it adjusts the recording accordingly, so you don't get like white out of noise and things like that.
It's a transducer that converts the sound into electric signals.
Well, according to the skeptics, what happens is, because you're always quiet when you're searching for EVPs, the auto gain circuit actually raises the volume pickup so that you actually get more noise coming in, and you're more likely to get interference. That's what they say. But do you think that's what you're doing? Because I don't think that's what you're doing. I've witnessed what you're doing.
It's not what I'm doing because I know my equipment, but I know what the argument that they're trying to make. If you had a coat on that was called Mussolini, you're standing 8 feet away, and I put a recorder on, and you've got it, and it's on the auto gain control, and you've got it set to the highest setting to pick everything up from a distance. The rustle could sound like a whisper. But I think it's important to mention that a lot of recorders these days you can actually take off the auto gain control, and that is something I would recommend. And the other thing is, people on the recorders, you always have different settings. Like, you know, you have conference. A lot of people put it on conference so that you can actually record a bigger area. That's actually a mistake, because then the auto gain will really kick in, trying to bring in and make sense of sounds that are even further away, and they can be misinterpreted. If a spirit wants to speak to you, there's no need to have it on conference.
And I mean, also there's these, it's not just modern recorders that can gather these phenomenon. They've been gathered on. I say it goes back a long way. This, and the auto gain circuit has not actually been in use until fairly recently.
But the circuitry on a lot of recorders that people use is cheap. The shielding's not very good. A lot of them are omnidirectional microphones as well. So I mean, if you've got that mix with the auto gain controlling,
I mean, the thing about also, but I mean, another point we've got to make here, and because I've had experience of this myself when I was at the Checkers with you, is that some of the things you recorded were very, very clearly human voices.
Wanted the same voices.
Exactly.
I just see your eyes getting bigger and bigger, mate.
That's the most incredible thing.
Incredible, yeah.
It really is. That's so clear.
That's got to be the favourite of the night.
Yeah. And that's when we were all sitting around here.
The skeptics couldn't argue with that.
They'll try. There was a very, very interesting point. You actually hear what sounds like two young boys.
Yeah, I mean, you was there. One of them actually says very, very loud and clearly, put that down. I mean, this is not a staticky sound that we're interpreting as voice. This
it's another thing is, I mean, like when it's true. I mean, I've got recording devices myself. I've got an electronic recording device which I use sometimes to make little audio notes to myself. And I know if you go quiet for a while and when you play it back, you suddenly hear the hiss getting louder. That's the auto gain circuit turning up because I'm not speaking. But that's all I've ever heard. All I've ever heard is the hiss getting loud. I've never heard, I've never heard things in that. I just hear the normal white noise in the background. I've never actually been in a situation where I've actually heard things that I could even begin to interpret as voices.
But Ben, even with some of the recordings I've actually taken under glass jars, thick, quite thick glass, which kind of cuts out the outside sound quite a lot.
Yeah, and you've done an awful lot of controlled experiments on this involving different methods. But we got to actually address another theory which is often used by skeptics of EVP, and that is. What actually happens is that the recording device can actually accidentally some of its components can actually accidentally function as an antenna, and you actually end up picking up radio broadcasts. There's a guy, A
lot of the digital recorders, although advanced as they are now and they are all digital, the circuitry is not best. A lot of the shielding is not best. Saying that, I've never actually experienced picking up a radio signal or anything other than static or a voice on my recorder. If you actually use an external microphone with a lead of probably around about 2 to 3 feet, there is a chance then you will pick up a random broadcast, because the microphone lead will actually act in part as an antenna for your recorder. Saying that, I've never experienced that either, but I do know that is actually possible. There's one recorder called the RCA-RP 5012B. I'm keen to get my hands on, because everybody seems to be, apparently it's an EVP magnet. Now, I don't believe it's an EVP magnet for one moment, but I would be very interested in actually having a look at one of them to see what all the fuss is about. Because if a spirit wants to talk to you, they'll talk to you. It's as simple as that. You don't have to have recorders that do everything. As long as it's a good quality recorder, if you can turn the audio gain control off or right down, obviously that's a bonus. A lot of the recordings I take also.
I want to go into. We'll go into that in a minute, but the visual aspect of this. But I want to also just discuss with you another thing, which is that when it comes to radio broadcasts, when you, for instance, you have an old-fashioned analog radio and you're turning the dial to tune it. Now you're going to get brief snatches of other stations which are a long distance away. You can't pick them up properly. But they're very, very recognisable, I find. You only get them for a moment, and they're very, very... They're perfectly recognisable. In fact, some of the early EVP experiments actually involved using radio scanners to continuously tune to different frequencies and wavelengths. But, this is what I find interesting is that when the skeptics who will say, well, it's obviously you're picking up radio broadcasts on these, they're accidentally acting as receivers for radio broadcasts. The actual voices that are heard, and as you say, sometimes these voices are very clear. It ought to be possible, because if you make a very strict note of when you heard and where you were when you actually pick these up, which you do, to simply go through the radio times, look what program was on at the time, listen to the podcast, and hopefully pick up the same snatch of whatever it was you were listening to on your EVP. But I actually asked a skeptic I know about this, and I said, well, look, has anyone ever done this? And he just says, well, Konstantin Rodiv, who was a researcher into this, he said he once thought he heard Radio Luxembourg. Right. Well, did he check? No. So really, this work has not been done by the detractors of this method that you use. So
it's also not as thorough as people have you make out. I mean, let's say we had some experiments that were done even 10 years ago. Let's just say we did this experiment 10 years ago and we've got a radio wave. This argument cannot be used forever. You can't say in 10 years after, or 20 years, but it's radio waves, because different recorders come out with different capabilities. A lot of them now are actually suppressing the static. And these experiments that have already been done should be done again.
When Crooks and Baird were doing their experiments, there was hardly any radio transmissions in the air anyway. So, but they were still picking up. Crooks, there was none when Crooks did it, and he was trying to pick up images. we got this very. I think it's obviously it's quite a reliable method if you get it to work, because the data is all there. You can make a recording. You can keep the recording.
Yeah, Ben.
Sorry about this. We're getting some technical issues. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Ben.
Sorry about this. We're getting some technical issues. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just cut out for a moment there. This is an interesting sort of subject here, listeners. We got this very. I think it's obviously it's quite a reliable method if you get it to work, because the data is all there. You can make a recording. You can keep the recording.
Yeah, Ben.
Sorry about this. We're getting some technical issues. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just cut out for a moment there.
What I was going to say is, what doesn't actually help is I've seen a lot of so-called EVPs on YouTube where people have got a sound and put it through the sound filters, and it sounds like something off Doctor Who. And that doesn't help when we're trying to, in the big scheme of credibility. When there's so much stuff out there that's really, really poor, that gives skeptics an awful lot to go at quite easily. To sustain their arguments in many cases.
Exactly, there's a lot of fake ones too. I mean, unfortunately, there's some you can actually hear there. It's just so obviously modulated.
Yeah, but let's not forget that it's not all about a sentence or a word. I mean, we did mention the skull experiment briefly earlier with Barchi. His communications through his radio were absolutely amazing. There was just full statements from these spirit people. I mean, one of them was this was all crystal clear, witnessed by everybody. Life does not finish on earth when you die. Don't forget this. There is a new world. Put away your uncertainties, your doubts and anxieties, dear children. Look at me, I'm alive here. Now, whichever way you cut it, Ben, you cannot misinterpret those words as something else. They are words. That is a full statement.
That is absolutely incredible. I mean, because one of the biggest questions that most people have, and everyone asks it at some point in their life, is what will happen when I die? Because everyone's going to die one day. What's going to happen to us when we do die? Will we disappear and that's just it? Or is there a heaven? Is there a hell? Do we get judged by God? Or what happens? You know what I mean? I think no one can go through life without considering that.
This guy's been doing this for years. I think he's excuse me. Was it around about 1970s when he really started going into it, didn't he? We've had scientists there, we've had skeptics there, debunkers and everything, taking valves out of the radio, putting it in Faraday cages. Everything's still coming through as it was before, nice and clear. Yeah. So the scientists have checked it and says we can't find anything untoward going on. Okay, that's it. We've looked at that. Let's leave it. I mean, there should be continued study and research into that. You're talking to spirits there that are giving out full statements like that. There's lots and lots of questions that the scientists could be asking them.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, this is
a lost opportunity.
But I mean, yeah. I mean, like I said, this seems to be. I mean, they do seem to want to communicate with us. Very often, they try to seek out. They seem to be aware of our world. They seem to look back or down or whatever. I don't know. Use these are just sort of metaphors. I mean, in terms of direction. But they seem to be aware of the living world which they've left, and they seek out people they knew during that time. And in order to communicate with them, one of the messages they want to give them is, "Look, I'm still here."
Yeah, and
they're there's no death as such. I've just moved on to another state of existence.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now this, I mean, what I think, this comes on to a more general kind of. You get into the philosophy of science, which is a very interesting subject, and I think there are actually distinct cultural reasons why society has never got to grips with this subject, and why there are skeptics with a K, debunkers in other words, who are always there to pour cold water on any research that seems to yield a positive result.
Yeah, but we've talked about this before, Ben. If your life's work is being and I'm not going to pop at any skeptics, I'm just saying generally, there's quite a few out there that will just, it'd be very difficult to actually turn and change your mind. You spend so many years writing books, doing conferences, putting arguments against this, that and everything else. How the hell, even if you suddenly decided or found out or had an experience, how would you come away from that? You can't. So all you can do is just carry on with what you're doing.
Yeah, and this is an important point, because I think if you ask a skeptic to define themselves, and I do urge listeners actually go to program 5, because I did an entire program on skeptics. I did an entire program about what skeptics are and what makes them tick and who they are. I've been to skeptic meetings, I've read skeptic books, I've been to a skeptic conference once. I'm going to a skeptic event tomorrow, actually. I'll give you a report of that next week. But the strange thing is that they will define themselves as people who simply believe in science and rationality, and they want empirical proof, they believe in experiment, and they just want to avoid taking on anything as true unless it's been proved scientifically. The thing about it is, I mean, that's not actually a description of who they are. That is a slogan. It's not a description. And I think when you actually get talking to them and you get listening to them, you get a feel that actually what they are is something very different. Oh, they are not aware of it. They don't have. It seems they have this inability to examine themselves. I mean, maybe we all have this idea. We all probably think we're someone different to who the other people see us as, and other people have a very different opinion of us than we ourselves have of ourselves, you know. But I think what they are is they're people. It's essentially an ideology.
Well,
would you agree?
It is. But one thing that never ceases to amaze me is there is some skeptics out there. I mean, I've always said, you know, as long as people show a little respect and are perfectly polite, then I'm quite happy to work with people and bring them along with me. But there's certain people out there that are just downright rude and condescending, and then will say, "Can I come with you?" or "Tell me this, tell me that, prove this and prove that," and everything else. You know, which is I just basically walk away from them type of people. I mean, skepticism is important. Open-minded, polite, professional, absolutely no problem. It is what we need. It is what we need.
I mean, you both of us, something that you and I both have in common is we've been accused of refusing to address alternative issues, refusing to talk to the skeptics.
To talk to skeptics at certain
I've been accused of that too.
One or two of which that have done nothing but put on pleasantries for the last couple of years. You know, now they want me to do this and do that with them. Well, no. You know, it's quite clear. I deal with people that display a certain amount of professionalism with the right attitude. I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. I've never shied away from looking at alternative sides of the story. Never. I'm very keen to seek these things out. I'm going tomorrow to an event like this. And I'll sit and I'll listen politely. I'm not there to cause trouble. I'm there just to listen.
The thing is, Ben, to be honest, there's not half the need for the scepticism that we've actually got today. Now, I'm not having a pop at anybody here. I'm just stating, you know, facts. The Catholic Church have done exorcisms where things have been witnessed and everything. They've supposedly got documented this on video and everything. You've got SPR with mountains and mountains of stuff, but it all seems to be sort of like, I know they put little bits out here and there, but I think people should just start putting out what they've got so it can be open to scrutiny by mainstream scientists, instead of it being statutory, we've done that and we've done everything else. If everybody displayed what they'd got, I think we'd move a lot further, a lot quicker.
Yeah, I want to come on to this in a minute, actually, because this is an important point. We've got to bring this up, definitely. But before we do that, I just want to give people a little bit of an idea about the difference between scepticism with a C and scepticism with a K, as I call it. Now, one thing you'll look out for, I think, is in terms of the EVP situation, is that very often what a skeptic will say is, well, these experiments need to be done in a place where the theories of what could influence these phenomena, which the skeptics claim influenced them, can be eliminated. For instance, a Faraday cage, which is a place which is basically a radio vacuum, where any radio signals coming in get absorbed by the cage and they don't radiate into the space within. Things like they've got to be in a soundproof room so you don't get any interference. The auto gain has to be turned off. Now, the thing is that, I mean, I didn't realise this, but experiments like this have been done and they prove positive results. But what's happened is, one was done in 1978, but immediately, I mean, another guy, 27 years later, a guy called Alexander McRae in 2005, went back on this 27-year-old experiment, and he said, no, it wasn't good enough. He spotted flaws, what he claimed were flaws in the methodology. Now, maybe that's true, but maybe it's not. Is it possible that, in your view, that what skeptics will do is if they come across something which doesn't fit in with their ideology, they will then take a razor blade, cut it into little strips, and look at every single aspect until they find something that could be interpreted as a flaw in the methodology.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. You know, your method is flawed. I hear that quite a lot from certain skeptics. Fine, okay. Tell me how it's flawed. You know,
I mean, this in some cases this could be deserved. There could be a well-deserved criticism. In other cases, maybe not so. Maybe it's because they want to project their ideology onto the result.
I mean, I'm like everybody else. I make mistakes sometimes. If I sometimes hear a voice that sounds like something, I may misinterpret it. You know, I'm human at the end of the day, but most of mine are extremely clear, loud and clear, and don't need a great deal of imagination.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's known as raising the bar. That's what it's known as. I mean, for a good example, I mean, we were talking a little bit before about the Rendlesham Forest, or another day. This was in a previous program. I was talking about the Rendlesham Forest UFO event, which of course is one of the most famous UFO events in history. I think most people have heard of it. Even those who are not interested in UFOs will have heard of the Rendlesham Forest event. Yeah. Now, so I don't really need to introduce it, but basically, what I always say, well, just imagine that craft had landed in the woods and in front of a man walking his dog. Just imagine that had happened, and he was the only witness. What would the skeptics? You know what the skeptics would say? They would say, "I don't believe it." They'd say, "If why didn't the security police from the base see it? If they'd seen it, I'd believe you, but they didn't. And why didn't the base commander come out and have a look? If he'd done that, then I'd believe you. But he didn't. But the thing is, Don, that's exactly what did happen. And do you know what? The skeptics are still saying that Rendlesham Forest is they're coming up with all kinds of.
Same I mean, it's totally off topic, but it's the same principle. The giant squid. There was many reports years and years ago of them sinking little rowing boats and things, and everybody says, "Oh no, they're absolutely rubbish." You know, and I mean giant squid. You know, that was until I think it was 1970s when they actually pulled one out of the water. I can't remember how big it was, but it was bloody huge. Point of the matter being, if that had been one person who'd actually seen that and told everybody else, they would all be saying, "No, that's rubbish." But it was witnessed by multiple people.
Well, exactly. But that's a good example. I mean, it's a good aside there, because that's exactly true. And maybe in 100 years' time, people will be aware that Bigfoot exists and the Loch Ness Monster, and they'll be saying, "Remember those idiots in those days who didn't believe you?"
Yeah, the thing is, Ben, you've also got to bear in mind, people say, well, until something's proved scientifically. Now, even if it is, it's still going to be of no use, because you've got mainstream scientists this side of the world, you've got mainstream scientists everywhere. And what happens is, if something's scientifically proved and accepted by one set of scientists, it only takes the other set of scientists to totally disagree. You're never going to get a uniform agreement on something paranormal, so therefore it's never going to be 100% accepted until that happens, and that's never going to happen, Ben.
I know, that's right. So things are going to carry on as they are, I think, for the time being. But this, what you said, I want to go into this other subject you brought up, because this is very interesting. This is a new topic that I've never heard of before, and that is what you said. Is it the SPR you mentioned specifically, they're actually sitting on a lot of evidence, they're not publishing it?
Yeah. I don't know what it is, and do you know what? I don't know what they've got, but I know they've got archives and archives. I was reading one report where one of them went to, I think it was actually somewhere in the US, and he went to, one of the SPL members went to investigate a poltergeist haunting, and he walked into this garage, and there was literally this wrench or something, and it was just floating in midair. And he looked in shock at it, and the gentleman there, the homeowner, just says, "Oh yeah, that's such and such, and that's what he does." You know, I mean, if that was on video, that'd be fantastic. If it was actually put out into the public, that'd be fantastic. There's so much that's archived that should actually be put out to the public. But I think a lot of people, I'm not talking about the SPR here, I'll make that clear, but a lot of people don't put out what they've got because it's going to be scrutinised, and there will be people agreeing with it and people not agreeing with it. You know, I just think people should start getting their stuff out there into the public domain.
Yeah, I mean, the what's interesting is that it's true. I mean, in a sense, the better case you put forward, the more opposition it will get.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
the more evidence you put forward,
excuse me,
the more people think, well, if I have a really, really good case with lots of evidence, then hardly anyone's going to challenge it. No, it's the other way around. Yeah, the better your case is, the more.
Forever reading about cases, you know, what happened and everything. You know, everywhere it's just reading. You know, I just really think we need to start getting out. I mean, SPR have done thousands and thousands of investigations. You know, that's a lot of footage. But if you actually look online anywhere of them actually conducting an investigation. And I'm not being specific to SPR, just there's many groups out there. There's very little out there, if anything.
Yeah. So they have. You think they have better material in their archives which they're not publishing now?
I think that.
And could there be any other reason, in your view, apart from the fact they don't want to put it out there because they don't want too much opposition.
Well, at this point, I'll leave SPR out of this equation totally. But
yeah, whatever organisation or groups we're talking about.
I was thinking generally as well. There's certain. Let's just say there's certain things that are worth more if they remain a mystery.
Right. Now this is something I never thought about before.
Well, if something's a mystery, then obviously you can write books about it and everything forever, can't you? Because it's a mystery. Yeah. It's worth more money-wise, isn't it? To be honest, anything that's a mystery is going to be worth more than something that's just proved and accepted.
Right. That's obviously this is a new angle on it. I've never really looked into in detail, but maybe it's something we do need to think about. But maybe, yeah, there are people who are on the paranormal investigation side who are on our side essentially, not the skeptics. We're on our side.
The thing is, Ben, we should all be on the same side, mate. You know, it's this them and us mentality. It really got to stop. You know, it really has.
It could be that some people are maybe quite like this status quo as it is, and they don't want to put anything too decisive out there.
Yeah, but a lot of people know what I've already said, that it's never going to be accepted by everybody scientifically, and or at least by the masses, and until it is, it's never going to be classed as being accepted.
Well, we shall see anyway. But so, what you got planned next? Because you've got some future projects on the go, I believe, which you've got to look forward to.
I've got some very interesting experiments coming up. I'm going to try and get. I've taken recordings from underwater before.
Right.
I'll be doing more the same thing, but it will be filmed. But the difference will be I'll probably be something around about 40-50 metres under the surface at the time. So I've got that. I'm also at the moment just trying to sort out a bank vault, believe it or not, in a disused bank. Because I think if I went into a bank vault in a disused bank at 2 o'clock in the morning and got some very clear replies, then replies would be quite credible. I also intend on taking the Faraday cage into the bank vault so we can try it with the Faraday cage and without and see what happens.
Well, I mean, a Faraday cage inside a bank vault has got to be one of the best radio vacuums in the world.
Control, to be honest. I mean, what I need to do at the moment, there's other things I'm doing as well. The orb experiment, which I'm not going to go into details at the moment, I mentioned this last year, where I found a way, if it's the case that orbs and dust particles are totally different things and orbs are spiritual, I found a way to divide the two, to separate the two. 100%.
That's interesting. Yeah.
People are going to raise an eyebrow at that, but it is a method that I've come up with, and it will work, and it will show the argument one way or the other once and for all.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'd like to see, because of course orbs is something that I think a lot of us a few years ago we were latching onto every single one of them, and now we realise that some of them are not. And so that's very important. But I mean, the underwater thing, are you actually going to you're able to, how to put on a diving suit and dive down?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Now 40 feet underwater, that's got to be the best Faraday cage imaginable underwater.
It's pretty good. So it's quite a long way. It's going to be interesting, and I'll show the results either way, whether it's successful or not, because I also think that's quite important.
Definitely. I mean, this is a point I made myself, and now you've already managed to get quite a good recording from inside a tank of water, because you put it inside the recorder inside a waterproof case and put it inside a tank of water.
Well, the recorder was put onto play, put in a Tupperware box, which was put in a plastic bag, which was sank at the bottom of about a foot of water with a brick on top. Yeah,
that's quite amazing. That's already up on YouTube for everyone to see. So this is interesting stuff. So what I'll do is I'll certainly keep an eye on your what you're up to, and hopefully get you back on the programme sometime in the future to talk some more about
Always
it.
Lots going on, Ben. Always.
Is there anything else you want to say to me and the audience before we sign off?
Check out the YouTube channel, JSI Paranormal UK. There's lots of stuff on there. Website, www.jsi-paranormal.com. There's a lot of information on there. Lots to go at. We've got lots and lots of experiments coming up soon, like I've said. Lots more investigations to come, so keep watching.
Well, that's really, really interesting, and certainly I will do that. Don Phillips, I want to thank you for being a guest on her panel. This has been a great live show, ladies and gentlemen. I know normally I'm recording, but normally this is just recorded playback, but this time Don has been on live. You're listening to him as he's speaking. So thank you very much, Don Phillips.
Thank you. All right. I'll speak to you soon, Ben.
And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, Panwo Radio show listeners. We shall now proceed with the rest of the programme.